We all watched as Warren Buffett sold his airline stocks, and I think a lot of people said to themselves, what does this really spell for the airline industry long term? We are seeing demand pick up, but of course it's on a low base. The real question I would ask you is whether you think, when you look at all the majors, whether they're all going to get through this, meaning just even through this as a company without any kind of restructuring, demonstrable restructuring.
Well, my opinion would be that they can get through the more immediate health crisis. So, take it out to maybe the end of this year and early next year. I think all of them will have enough debt raised, and they have enough coming in from the government now to get to that point. But I think over time, this really morphs more from the health crisis into sort of a long-term demand slump now that unemployment is so high. And so if you look at how much debt's been added in just the last 3 months or so, I think, if you take just the example of Delta, they're, I think, adding around $500 million of new interest costs. So that just, it's already hard to make money in airlines because fixed costs are high from your regular operations. Now you're adding all these new fixed costs from the debt. And so it just makes it that much harder. You might have to have 10% more revenue passenger miles than you did last year just to get back to the same point. So to your question, I do think that there's going to be some restructuring for a few players.
And so as a result of that, would you own any of these stocks at these prices?
I would not. I think if you're inclined to bet on a kind of a contrarian view that maybe air travel demand will come back a lot sooner than the market's anticipating, I think there are better ways to play that more on the sort of the commercial aerospace supply side, where you still have some actual cash flows coming in during the crisis, and you're not just, burning cash and piling up debt. Because, to me, the big risk is, okay, let's say you get through this crisis and everything comes back to normal. Your balance sheet is not back to normal. You just have a lot of the damage is already done over how much debt's been added, because, I think it's a long road to recovery in the first place, but now you have to just do so much more business to break even again. And I think it's going to be tough.
Can we just talk about the demand picture? Because to me, there's two issues here. There's the airline industry that will be impacted by that demand picture. I just want to understand your demand forecast, if you will, given the unemployment picture that we're seeing now and what you are projecting that to look like 12 months from now. Because this sounds to me like more than just a call on the airlines. If the airlines are not going to have people on the planes in the numbers that I think we'd all like to see, it's going to have a demonstrable trickle-down effect across the entire economy.
Well, yeah, I think just to give you some context, if you go back to where U.S. passenger miles were in 2007, that didn't fully recover until 2014. And I think, coincidentally, that's 2014 is the same year we recovered our employment levels from 2007. So I think that's the big issue. Is it's more, to me, there was a big bump on the vaccine for the airlines this past Monday on that news. But I think, the limiting demand factor becomes much more the pandemic. It becomes now, do people have discretionary income to take flights and, go pay for the hotels where they stay and do all these things that they spend money on when they travel? To me, it's a lot longer.
You're talking about the consumer part of it. What do you think about business travel? Do you think that, you hear a lot of people talk about the future of work, and we all talk about how, I assume you're coming to us on Zoom or Skype or something like that right now. And everyone seems to think, oh, nobody's going to travel in the future because we're all going to be on these phone calls. How real do you think that is? Or how much human connection do you think people are going to still want in the future?
Well, you probably have, a broader base of anecdotal evidence on that kind of stuff than I do. My view is that there will be a day in the next, call it 3 to 5 years when we eclipse the passenger miles we had in 2019. On a global basis, I think the economy is going to keep growing. It's going to keep integrating. People are going to want to be on site with each other. So I do think that there will be a full recovery eventually. It's just a matter of how long before people have the money to take those trips they want, in my view.
Right.